And then the next morning, very early on, I get a call from, Marissa, and she's bawling, and the doctor's there, and it's like, hey, they got to take the baby today. Like, we're 30. I wasn't expecting to cry there. But I remember getting the phone call on my way to the daycare, to preschool with Uriah.
Right.
You've got a son, a 4-year-old in the back who understands, like, he can pick up on everything.
Knows there's something happening.
Knows there's something happening. Dad starts like, hey, Marissa's crying, Mama's crying. She's on the speaker, so I got to take her off the speaker.
Yeah.
And we're told, the doctor says, hey, we got to get this baby out. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. Like,
It's time to go.
You got to go. So I remember driving him to preschool, Uriah, and like, I wasn't able to release anything. Because I'm like, I can't freak out my son.
Right.
So I drop him off, and man, I told his preschool and his teacher just a few words to say. I said, hey, Marissa's in the ICU. They got to take the baby, and I don't know what's going to happen next. Welcome to the Generationally Speaking podcast. If this is your first time tuning in, what we do here is we approach topics through the pastoral lens of our generation. But for today's episode, we are going to be walking through what has been a difficult couple of months for my family. And so I want to invite you in as we talk about what it looks like to navigate through the wilderness. And this episode is going to be more interview-ish, but I pray that it is still helpful for those of you who are also in a wilderness season. So buckle up, grab some popcorn, and tune in for episode 6 of season 6 of the Generationally Speaking podcast.
Talk about the very first thing is when we realized everything was about to change.
Yeah. So for those who aren't aware, January 1st kind of kicks off the lead pastor. It's our new year.
Right.
And so that's when the transition happened. And Marissa at the time was 20, right at the start of the year, 24-ish weeks pregnant. Mm-hmm. And she was due March 13th. It was about 2 weeks into January when things started to kind of feel a little off.
Right.
She started dealing with some heavy breathing, very tired, just like, again, at the very start, very simple pregnancy, very common pregnancy symptoms. And when we mentioned it to her OB/GYN at her 30-week appointment, I think, toward the end of January, about 5 days before everything went south, he just said she needed to drink more water. Like, that was all they said, is just drink more water. Yeah. And so she was drinking water, and that wasn't helping. She couldn't stand for more than a couple minutes without getting super dizzy, super lightheaded. Her heart rate was insane. She, really trouble with breathing. So it was over that weekend, we had the huge winter storm, if you remember,
right.
End of January. We ended up canceling service, actually. And it was that Saturday or Sunday where I told her, I was like, hey, you need to call your OB/GYN. Tell him you can't stand. Like, this is not normal. But they were closed over the weekend. So the plan always was on Monday, she would call first thing. We got the big snowstorm Sunday. Monday, she started to feel a little bit better. And then Tuesday is when everything went to crap.
Yeah.
So that was when she called her OB/GYN. Finally, I was here at work, and they said, hey, you need to rush to the hospital. Like, you need to go to ER because that's not normal.
Right. And so then what was the process from that? You went to the hospital?
Yeah, so we went to the birth and delivery at DuPont. She's 32 weeks pregnant now at the time, or 33 and a half weeks pregnant at the time. And they say, we got to check her into emergency room because she is experiencing shortness of breath. So they checked her into emergency room. And that day, like, I brought Uriah with me. Like, we had Uriah. We thought we were going to be in and out of there. Like, it was going to be a medication.
Going to figure out what
we're going to put you on bed rest. So I'm like, okay, this is January like 27th or 28th. I can't exactly remember. Like, hey, we are going to be in and out. So we brought Uriah with his Nintendo Switch. We're sitting in the emergency room. They start running a bunch of tests. EKG, heart, checking the heart, ultrasound, checking her breathing, her blood. They run. I mean, they're just racking up. They are single
padding the bill.
Oh yeah. And the problem was nobody had any idea what was happening. So they kept running these tests, and there was no reason. I mean, her resting heart rate was 120, 130, which is not good for those who are unfamiliar with the resting heart rate. She couldn't stand without getting dizzy and nauseous. Her reflux was insane. and shortness of breath, obviously.
Was she freaking out at this time?
Freaking out's a loose term.
Was she?
She couldn't really breathe. So like, and I say
so
that
it's hard
like
to be freaking
jokingly.
out when you're
it
that.
was like, and this is part of Marissa's problem, and my problem is we grew up with parents like we've been through adversity,
Right.
and her pain tolerance is fairly high. I mean, she went weeks with this.
Right.
So like, was she freaking out? No, it was like, again, we both were under the impression we were going to get some medicine.
We're going to figure something out. And it's going to be taken care of, and we're going to.
When
be
they
back to
told
normal.
me a couple hours into it that they wanted to admit her overnight, I was like, absolutely not. Like, why? Like, that's just gonna. You're doing this. My first thought was you're doing this just to charge us money.
Yeah.
So they ended up admitting her overnight. I took Uriah home so he could sleep, and then the next day she ends up getting admitted to the delivery part. The emergency room said there's nothing more we can do, so they ended up admitting her to delivery. There they ran a bunch of tests. They finally put her on a medicine to try to get the heart rate to slow down. That was baby safe. And it didn't work. So that's when, after a day of that, that's when they came to us and they or it was later that night, the second day we were there, they said, hey, we got to admit you to the ICU. This is when it got scary, I would say.
I would assume, yeah.
Because I up till that point, it was like, just normal tests, and she's in the safety of still the hospital.
And you're still thinking that there's going to come up with a solution for this, but
They
when they
kept
start saying
telling
words
us,
like
"You're gonna be
intensive
home."
care unit is
Right.
when it gets.
And I had gotten the phone call from Marissa. They're admitting me to the ICU when I was at a dinner meeting here at the church.
Right.
So I was out with some young adults, and they're like, "Hey, they got to admit me." So I had to go get Uriah. It was about 4 or 4:30 to take him to the hospital because he wasn't gonna be allowed to be in the ICU. And again, this could have been. At the time, we're like, maybe she'll be there a couple of days, a couple hours, a couple of weeks. Who knows? But Uriah wasn't allowed in the ICU. So I take her. And there was this really sad moment that we know is sad now because of how bad it got, that I'm rushing Uriah to the ICU, to the emergency room or delivery room. And he had like 2 minutes with Marissa before they ripped her away and rushed her upstairs. And at the time, we still thought this was no big deal.
Right.
We knew it was big, but we were pretty certain, like, hey, they're going to figure it out. Because as soon as she got to the ICU doctor came in and said, I'll have you out of here tomorrow. We know exactly what it is. EKA is what they diagnosed her with. And so I end up hearing that. I don't stay the night with Marissa because doc is pretty clear. She's going to be out of here in the morning.
Right.
Get her on some medicine, get the numbers all figured out, insulin all worked out and stuff. And then the next morning, very early on, I get a call from, Marissa, and she's bawling, and the doctor's there, and it's like, hey, they got to take the baby today. Like, we're 30. I wasn't expecting to cry there, but I remember getting the phone call on my way to the daycare, to preschool with Uriah.
Right.
And you've got a son, a 4-year-old in the back who understands, like, he can pick up on everything.
Knows there's something happening.
Knows there's something happening. Dad starts like, hey, Marissa's crying, Mama's crying. She's on the speaker, so I got to take her off the speaker.
Yeah.
And we're told, the doctor says, hey, we got to get this baby out. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. Like,
it's time to go.
You got to go. So I remember driving him to preschool, Uriah, and like, I wasn't able to release anything. Because I'm like, I can't freak out my son.
Right.
So I drop him off, and man, I told his preschool and his teacher just a few words to say. I said, hey, Marissa's in the ICU. They got to take the baby, and I don't know what's going to happen next. And like, so as soon as I get in the car, I actually called Michael. He was the first person I called and told. I called Michael, and he was on vacation. He picked up. I had actually given him a warning as I was driving. I said, hey, I'm going to need you to be available in 5 minutes. He was on a ski trip. So I called Michael and I was like, hey, and I just like lost it. Cause Michael, and this is just a little tidbit, Michael was actually the first person I talked to months and months and months before when Marissa and I were processing trying to have a second one. And he walked me through all the pros and cons.
Right.
And one of the cons we had talked about was like, we did talk about there is the possibility of either miscarriage, losing the baby, or even spending time in the NICU. And we're like, we know that could happen. So anyway, so then I call Michael, then I call Bruce. I might have called you. I can't remember. And I go to the ICU, and they're basically, they're preparing Marissa. And they're like, hey, 4 hours from now, we're going to take the baby. And then they told us, they said, hey, we're going to have to rush you back to the ICU because her numbers weren't improving. That's why they had to make the decision. And then it started to hurt Chloe's heart rate.
Right.
So
and that's why they were in a hurry.
And that's why they were in a hurry. And they said, hey, we got to get the baby out. Baby will spend time in NICU.
I was shocked that they actually allowed you in the delivery room.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
I mean, honestly, when you look back at all of the things now, there's a couple things that are both shocking, upsetting. When you find out later on how bad it actually got, that they let me go home, that no doctor really was on the same page, that it's a miracle how things turned out.
So let's jump into, you had the baby, unless there's something else you want to talk about.
No, yeah.
So you had the baby, you're in NICU.
Yeah.
Nothing's going as you had planned at this point. What's it like having a child in the NICU and dealing with all that?
Yeah, for those, so the NICU, and this is what they tell you. They tell you to expect it to be, you're going to be there for as long as your baby's full term was, which was 6 weeks. Well, Chloe came out pretty chunky.
She was big.
She came out 7 pounds, 3 ounces at 33 weeks, 6 days.
Yes.
And so part of right at the beginning, what was struggling was you look and you see a full term baby.
Sure.
The nurses looked and saw a full-term baby too. And so they start right away saying, she'll be here 2 to 4 weeks tops.
She's giving you a hope.
Not even just a hope, but starting to put like thoughts in your brain of like, okay, there is a plan.
Right.
For those who haven't been a part, and this might have been just our experience, there really was never a communicated plan or process or goals like this is what we have to hit. It essentially was, hey, whatever the numbers are that the current doctor who's on staff that day determines they need to hit for drinking, eating, breathing, all that. Then if they hit those numbers for a couple days in a row, then we'll talk. So that was probably the hardest part about the whole thing is it wasn't someone who's like a goal person or a logical person. The NICU is there's so many unknowns. And you experienced this with your twins too, and that was way back in the day.
I hardly remember it.
Right, but I think that was the hardest part was, it wasn't like we show up today and it was like, okay, these are the goals she has to hit.
Yeah. But see, we did have some of those goals right away. We knew what weight we had to get to. We knew how much they had to be eating.
And part of it was because she'd already crushed the weight. She was 2 pounds over what they usually say you got to get to about 5 pounds, 6 pounds.
That was ours. We had to get to 5 pounds.
Hers was the eating.
Yep.
Her internal organs had to catch up. But the problem was, because she was so heavy, the numbers she had to hit were just insane. She wasn't anywhere near hitting the numbers.
And you had ups and downs even in that.
Oh, so many. There were, the first couple weeks she's on breathing treatment, breathing tubes, stuff like that. So before you even start thinking about the food, it was, you're in the NICU with a 4-year-old at home. All the unknowns of like, okay, Marissa's got maternity, I've got paternity. We can't start that now
because you got a long road to hoe.
Not only do we have a long road, but Marissa's like, this is the month of February that Marissa was going to spend working overtime to make sure she could take maternity for soccer season. I just started lead pastorship. You're on vacation 2 or 3 weeks in the early year. I'm on the schedule to preach 5 times in the first 2 months. Like,
it's exactly how we had it planned.
Exactly how we had it planned, so that March we could slow down.
Right.
And here's the thing. I share that to say, the elders and the staff, we were given so much extra time, but we still wanted to be good stewards of that time.
Sure.
We didn't want to take advantage. We wanted to work when we could. But so we're in the midst of all that. It wasn't just like we could just focus on the NICU. We both had full-time jobs. We had a 4-year-old at home, plus then trying to balance being at the NICU.
Right.
So
as quickly as you can, some of the highs and some of the lows, and what were you able to? What did you rely on to get through some of those things?
Yeah.
What was the anchor there?
Wow, that was a lot of questions there. We'll start with the anchor. And I've been thinking about this a lot. Obviously Jesus, but within that though, worship music has been a big piece for me. I've listened to probably more worship music in the last couple months and I've always loved worship music. My Spotify raps are always top 5 songs are always Christian songs. That's just, I'm a pastor at heart and I'm a sucker for worship music. But these last couple months, like when the prayers ceased, or when scripture was exhausting, like to read, when you're just in the hospital room and there's so much beeping. And again, that's one of the lows, which we'll talk about here in a sec. Putting in headphones and just sitting there with worship music where other people can sing on your behalf. That was my anchor. Honestly, was my big anchor.
That's cool.
Highs and lows. The highs, our nurses were incredible. I mean, you probably have 20 different nurses in your time the longer you stay. We almost had a different nurse every day. We had a couple of regulars, but the nurses were all so kind. Some of my personal friends were some of our NICU nurses, which was cool. The lows was one. There was no like set plan that was communicated and then effectively executed, because there's 5 or 6 different doctors that work at DuPont Hospital that we were at. Every single doctor had a different opinion. Mm-hmm. And I'm not just sharing that as an anxiety. Like, that was probably the most frustrating part, is that every single one had a different opinion on how to, and this isn't to bash DuPont at all. I mean, I probably shouldn't have used their name, but it is what it is. This was just the hardest part, was that every nurse, every doctor, every opinion was different. And so one doctor tells you one thing one day, and then the next doctor tells you something different the next day. They all have different strategies, different plans. And so it wasn't just this because our baby was going back and forth. There were a lot of days when our baby was going like this.
I was gonna say, one of the things that I remember as we texted and talked and things like that is that you'd have a couple of good days, and then you start seeing progress, and then it would crash.
Yeah, and then there'd be one bad day, or the doctor would come in and say, "Hey, she's not hitting her numbers."
Be hard. That has to be devastating.
It was awful, and it got to a point. I think it was the 4 weeks in. It was 4 weeks in. She's 38 weeks pregnant now. And one of the doctors came in. One of the 6 doctors came in and basically said, "Hey, you need to prepare for her to be her 40 to 42 weeks, and even start preparing for her to need surgery." And I'm like,
where did this come from?
So it was actually the day I texted you and I said, "I need you to come to the hospital and bring me Chick-fil-A."
Yeah.
I was like, I need something deep fried, and I need a milkshake. I'm like, just give me something.
Give me something I can hold on to.
And so that was a Saturday. What ended up being the Saturday when she was discharged, before she was discharged. But, you came in, and I was just like, today was one of the hardest days.
Yeah.
Because now at that point, the only thing she needed to accomplish was eating on her own.
Yep.
The numbers hitting the numbers they had projected. She never hit those numbers. Eventually, and why she ended up being discharged the day she was because we met with one doctor and we said, she's gaining weight. She's not hitting your imaginary numbers, like that you are projecting on your algorithm based on how much she weighs. She's not even close to them, mm-hmm. but she's still gaining weight. So he said, "So why are we still here?"
Yeah.
And the one doctor we met with was the one who the whole time had been wanting to get her out. Like, he had been very adamant of, "You're right." So he even came in the day that she was discharged, and he wouldn't have done it had she not been healthy enough. But he came in on his day off to discharge her.
Oh, that's cool.
I would say another really big low, and there's probably more lows to this than highs. Another big low was balancing work, home, NICU.
Yeah.
All the back and forth. With Uriah at home, who can't meet her, can't come to the hospital with us, giving him attention while being at the church, and then also being there for our baby girl.
Yeah. And you had expectations of how you wanted all that to go. And, and here you are, dealing with
we had
that.
expectations and desires, but we didn't even have the evidence we didn't really have the knowledge to set them. Because the doctors told us multiple times, we don't know what to do with a baby this big. And so part of it then even became frustrating, where it was almost like an experiment. And again, that's not what it was. That was just part of the thought of are you using this time to learn things about bigger babies at 34 weeks?
Yeah.
And so a lot of inconsistencies.
Yeah, and I think from an outsider's, as I think of you and going to the leadership aspect of that, as I saw you struggling with, okay, I'm supposed to be leading this church, which you were doing very well, by the way. Yeah. But again, your expectations was, this is how I wanted to lead, this is how I expected to lead, and you weren't able to. But you finally came to peace with that. Yeah. I think.
I had to.
Is that true?
Yeah, I had to. I think it was probably the first week in February. where I realized, I'm like, okay, we're going to be here a while. If I'm going to be a good husband, a good father, and a good leader, I've got to figure out what can I do well in this season, what can I do average, and what can I do.
That is brilliant. Yeah.
And so I knew
you had to let go of some stuff.
I had to, which I don't like doing.
Right.
As a go-getter at times, workaholic, but also a fatherholic and a husbandholic. Like I don't
in all three
like,
areas.
Right. I don't like one area of my life.
You have very high expectations of yourself and performing in every one of those areas.
So I knew I'm like, I'm coming into this big season of life with lead pastor. I'm like, I got to figure out what can I do well. And I was like, another way of wording it was I had to come up with a list. What can I give my best to? So there were only two things. One was I could give my best to preaching, and I could give my best to my family. So that was all my energy went to. Mm-hmm. It's like working out, exercise is going to have to come when it shows up. Meeting with people, I didn't do any of in February and the first 2 weeks of March. I knew that, like, hey, I could not give congregants my best.
Right.
So I just didn't schedule any meeting. I was like, I can give my best to preaching, and I can give my best to my family.
That's a great lesson for anybody going through that kind of stuff. I want you to tell the story. You didn't know this was coming.
No.
You actually had a conversation with Marissa about this very thing. I don't know if you remember this, but we were laughing about it, and you telling me the story of her taking Uriah to preschool after. Chloe, what may not have been
I'm still trying to figure out what story you're telling me.
He showed up in a Spider-Man outfit when it was pajama day.
Oh yeah, yeah, that's true. Okay, yeah. So Chloe was still in the NICU, and it was Spirit Week at preschool.
Spirit Week.
This is a good example. This
that's what I'm saying.
Kind of where we were.
Yeah.
This was 3 or 4. I think this was 4 weeks into the NICU process, and we thought it was Superhero Day.
Right.
It was supposed to be Superhero Day.
Yeah.
Actually, we found out we were right.
You were correct.
But part of it was later communicated they were making a change.
Oh, okay.
But this is perfect along the lines. So Uriah shows up in
his Spider-Man
in his superhero costume.
Yeah.
And we start walking up. I start walking him up to the preschool, and all of these kids are dressed in Hawaiian clothes.
Yeah, it's Hawaiian.
And my first thought was maybe a lot of people are just being Moana or dressing like Maui. So then his teacher walks out, and she's got the Lay's. She's got skirt on, everything, and I realized somewhere along the line
something is amiss here.
Something is amiss. And so I text Marissa, and I was like, I don't think it was Superhero Day. And she was super upset.
Yeah.
Because she's like, I'm
devastated.
She said, I'm failing as a mother.
Right.
She's like, in this season, again, and some of you might be watching and you're like chuckling because you're like, why would you think that? But like for Marissa, it was, and the exact thing she said to me was, if I was able to pay more attention to Uriah and the communication, I wouldn't have missed this. And that was just an example where I remember talking with her. I was like, Riss, we can't give our best to the preschool communication right now.
Right.
Like that is one of the areas that we just can't give our best to.
Yeah. And it's okay.
And that's okay.
And you have to let yourself off the hook.
Yeah.
I when you told that story, I just thought it was brilliant, and what a lesson for anybody who's going through some stressful situations.
Yeah.
You cannot do it all the time.
Yeah. And I had people who, because I preached a lot. I preached 4 times, I think. 4 out of the 6 weeks we were in the NICU.
Well, yeah, and part of that was because I was on vacation and I was supposed to preach. The snow came. We had to change the schedule.
Yep.
And so I couldn't preach, so you had to preach for me.
Yeah.
And yeah.
I had some people that asked. I did have people that asked me, like, why are you still preaching? Like, and for me, there was so much healing in that too.
Well, we honestly, as leadership, tried to take some of those away from you.
Yeah.
You said, no, this is what's keeping me going.
I was like, this
and
is what
okay.
I need. I said, I need my 2 best. I need to give my best to my family, and I need to preach.
Yeah.
Because that is the closest I felt to God, was in that preparatory stuff. Yeah, so cutting back on figuring out what could I give my best to. And so then cutting back, I didn't meet with anyone all of February. Usually I meet with 2 to 3 people a week.
Yeah.
Or 1 to 3 meetings a week. People in the church, leadership people, stuff like that. I was only in the office about 2 hours a day, about 4 days a week, 2 hours a day. Then I would go to the NICU, be there for 2 to 4 hours. Then I'd go home. be with Uriah and stuff. And so I had
you
to be
say
okay.
that, but you were still working even in the NICU.
Well, I had to,
Yeah,
because
I
mean, I was still preaching and then still communicating, doing a lot of writing, a lot of, working on future blogs or stuff like that, or even just writing my own thoughts. And so, yeah, it was being okay with, in this season, this is what I can give my best to. Because I've seen a lot of leaders, and I would say male leaders, especially in seasons like this, where their best is fully their job. Like fully work.
Yep.
And they don't switch, like it because again, it goes to the mother, it goes to the wife. Like they spend all the time in the NICU. I'll go for like and like, to me, I was like, man, if I'm going to lead well, and I shared this with my church a couple months ago, my first ministry is my wife.
Right.
My second ministry will always be my kids. And then my third ministry will be the church. If I don't show that now, then I'm a hypocrite.
Right.
So my first ministry, I got to make sure Marissa's taken care of. I got to then make sure Uriah and Chloe are taken care of. And then I'll give the church the best I got.
Let's talk about another area that you kind of got stretched in this. And a lot of people rallied, which was really cool to watch a church do. How you dealt with generosity and everything that people surrounded you with. And it was shown.
The first 4 days, only our elders and our staff really knew what was going on.
Right.
When Marissa was in the ICU, even the day or two before with the breathing stuff, ICU, birth, all that. And then it was 2 days after Marissa was discharged, I got a call from the hospital, like, hey, where's our money? Like, where's our $40,000? We're like, because for those who are, Marissa and I were on Christian Health Share Ministries with Samaritan Ministries. I'm like 2 days out, I'm like, where's our money? I'm like, I don't have it. But then even then, because of Marissa's experience and Chloe's experience, like the things that were covered and weren't covered weren't a part of the typical pregnancy plan. Right. It was just, there were thousands of dollars that we owe. We're going to end up owing about $20,000 between the two patients. I'm like, I don't have it. Like, what do you mean? And Michael's actually sitting in the office next to me, and he's about to come up and get the phone from me and hang up and throw it against the wall.
Yeah.
And that's when I kind of realized, okay, this isn't just because I'm emotional. Like this isn't right. So then I talked to you, I talked to my mom, I talked to Bruce. I'm like, what do we do? Like, I don't like asking for things, generosity, but there's so many people in the church who wanted to show love through help. So we put together the GoFundMe, raised, I think, $19,000 of the $20,000 so that Marissa and I don't have to worry about the medical bills. Yeah. And there's still a lot of appointments coming up, chiropractic care for Chloe. She's got a couple heart things because of things she ended up dealing with, which is another part of the story we never got into, but that's okay. We had meals for those first 6 weeks every night. We still have hundreds of dollars of gift cards. I have $400 on the DoorDash app still. I've got $300 at Chipotle, like groceries that were covered. I was talking to Trevor and Michael about this weekend because we just paid another $3,000 off the hospital bill on Saturday, I think it was, without having to use our own money, just money that people had donated to help cover. Like when you think about the Acts, the couple first chapters in Acts, when the church sells their possessions or gives of their possessions to those who are in need, like that's what was happening. People were bringing meals, our groceries were covered, our medical bills were covered. People were bringing so many clothes for Chloe, like diapers, and so within all of that, so much generosity. And there was a piece that, and it didn't become hard because we've worked a lot on it. But being okay with accepting all of that.
That's, and I think a lot of people feel that, but so many of us and so many people out there felt like this is one thing I can do.
Yeah.
So they want to help. And
there were a ton of people like that. We had over 100 people give to the GoFundMe.
Right.
Like I said,
it was cool to watch, but on the same token, it's somewhat hard for some people like us, the way we're wired, to accept that.
Oh yeah. Because we were good stewards with our finances.
Very.
We are good stewards with our, even if we didn't receive anything from GoFundMe, we would have made it work. We would have been $20,000 in the hole and had to, work toward paying it off over time. And honestly,
when we had the conversation, you were okay with that.
I told you that, yeah. And we would have been okay.
You said we can figure this out. It's going to be okay.
It would be nice if we didn't have to figure it all out.
And that's what, some of us said, hey, we want to make sure that you don't have to try to figure that out.
And that's what, our elders, our staff, like I said, people that don't even go to the church, but, and then meals, like not having to worry about cooking and cleaning and receiving generosity. But then I think the cool part was, and I said this a couple times, first off, thank you to everyone. If you haven't heard me say it. The cool part, though, was it was unsurprising.
Yes.
Like, the way our church has operated the last 4 to 6 years, and I probably even before my time then, we have a very generous church.
Yes.
We have a church that rallies, and I've seen it for other families. To be on the receiving end of it, though, is just so humbling, where it was, in the good sense of the word, overwhelmed.
Right.
With, receiving the generosity of others. Overwhelmed by the bills that were being paid for by people, the anonymous donations, the food on top of food on top of food, the gift cards, the check-ins, the texts, the prayers. It was unsurprising, but it was cool being on this side of it.
Yeah. So in all this experience that you've had, how's it changed you as a person? What do you see differently?
I think the phrase, be where your feet are, has been really big. Be where your feet are. Because especially in the NICU, again, they didn't tell us until we got to the last 48 hours of being there and demanded essentially to know what the plan was. We didn't really have you're going to be out of here by this day until about 1 or 2 days before. So in all of it, it really, like, the biggest thing, how it changed me was, as someone who's emotional and can struggle a lot with fear and anxiety. There were a couple bad days, certainly. You got texts on those days that today was a hard day.
Yeah.
Out of the 40 days, though, in this whole journey, whether it was the ICU and emergency room before those, or then the 37 days in the NICU, it was, and I told people this, like, today, I just need to be where my feet are, mentally. I can't think about, and for someone who likes to plan, if you follow me at all on my blog, I've always got the goals for 2026. I've always got the blog. I've got, this is where I want to be. This is what I want to do. I want to hit these workouts. I want to hit this prayer time. I want to hit this scripture. Like, today, this is where my feet are. I am able to only spend 30 minutes at the NICU today. Sometimes that's where there were days for me where I could rush to the 5 o'clock treatment, feed her bottle, and then 5:30 I gotta go home and be dad to Uriah. It was, where are my feet right now? And then in that, don't let your feet run faster than what you're capable of. Because, like, for me, it was like, again, everything's a marathon.
Yeah.
And even in everything's a sprint. Like, how can I go? And it was like, man, today I just need to, like, sit and be okay with that.
Where were areas that you saw God show up the most, or maybe surprisingly, or unexpectedly? Some of those lessons.
I mean, it was just so cool. Like, literally, we're in the ICU with Marissa, and a cross-bridger walks in at 10 o'clock at night and is her ICU nurse. And then another cross-bridger becomes her insulin nurse. And then her delivery nurse was one of my lifelong friends from grade school, whose husband is now the youth pastor at City Church downtown, and we've been really close. She was one of Chloe's main NICU nurses. And then within that, there was a third cross, so 3 cross-bridgers were Marissa's nurses, and a third one was another one of her NICU nurses. We live 3 minutes away from the hospital. And just the convenience of that, the timing of all of it, all the texts, all the generous gifts. I think there was, even though there were some hard days, The biggest way I saw God show up was that and I guess I'm saying this biasly, I didn't overreact to the situation. You might be able to speak more to that because you saw the outside.
Correct.
How you saw me on the outside really was how I was trying to be real on the inside too, but there were a couple hard days, couple of blowups, but out of the 40 days, I'd say 36 to 38 of them, 37 of them, I was just like, this is where we are today.
Yeah, and I would say not only I can speak to that, but the staff and leadership that watched you on a daily basis walk through this. It was obvious that you had surrendered to what was in store for you and what God had for you, and the trust. It was evident in how you were navigating that whole thing. It was beautiful to watch. It really was.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, back in October, and I shared this in my sermon a couple months ago, that the word God gave me for the year was trust.
Yeah.
And then the verse was Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. We're only in March, and
Last time you pick a word like that.
I know. Well, I even made that joke about when
Yeah.
2020 was no turning back,
Yeah.
and that was one of the hardest years of my life.
Yeah.
And now this year was trust, and going into it, I was like, God, what you got? Like, this is, and we're only in March, and like,
Yeah.
so who knows what else is in store. But I think that was also reassuring that, there was a big scare, and there was a likely chance that either Marissa or Chloe could have died.
Sure.
That's not just,
It's just the way it was.
just the way it was.
That was reality.
Yeah. and this is part of what I mentioned earlier. We're 3 weeks in, and Chloe has a bout with what's called SVT.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing I actually had as a kid.
Right.
Her heartbeat was 300 beats per minute, somewhere between 270, 300 beats per minute for 45 minutes straight.
That was the
Out
day
of
that I was
nowhere.
freaking out a little bit, to be honest with
Yeah, because I was in your office.
Yeah.
I'd actually come in. We talked for about an hour, and then I get a call from Marissa. I was like, hey, Chloe's heart rate's 270.
you. And we were in a mid conversation. You just up and left, which
Yeah.
You obviously needed to do, but it was
Yeah,
like,
well, I
oh my
even
gosh.
asked Marissa, I was like, do you need me to come there? And she goes, no, I
No,
don't
she
think so. I
says
was
no.
like, yeah, I'm going to drop what I'm doing. I'm going to go.
Yeah.
Well, that was my story. When I was 8 days old, my parents walked into the crib, and I was blue, and they had to rush me to the hospital. Heartbeat was 300 beats per minute. It was SVT. So I'm like, okay, great. This is like God took us this far. Like, those are some of the thoughts you think. But even within any of that, it's just like, I'm just I'm planted. Like, I am, if something bad happens with Chloe, like, we will get to there. We will address that when it comes.
Right.
It could be any moment, even to this day, still.
Right.
With any of us. And I think the biggest thing of seeing God in all of it was my natural wiring. One has grown a lot. I've grown in my natural wiring. But my natural wiring didn't have power over my surrendered wiring.
Mm.
Like, I worked really hard.
Unpack that just a little bit so that if someone's questioning what you're meaning by that.
The way that we are
powerful.
designed as humans cannot have the final say. Like, some people, like Michael, or for those who know Bruce, they're more logical thinkers.
Right.
Some people like me, or my mom, Kim, are more emotional thinkers. That's our natural wiring.
Right.
One or the other is wrong. You need logical thinkers to sometimes think emotionally. You need emotional thinkers to sometimes think logically. But in the mix of all that is then your spiritual wiring.
Mm-hmm.
And that is where I think when Paul talks about, and we just talked about this last week, dying to self
Right.
for the Spirit
Mm-hmm.
of being led by the Spirit is the verse we read this week in chapter 8 of Romans. That's what I tried really hard this month to do, these last couple months, of whenever I saw or I felt my natural wiring come out in unhealthy ways, anxiety, depression, fear, uncontrollable fear, but then also leading Marissa in some of those, like Marissa, trying to be encouraging of her.
Sure. It's basically where Paul talks about plainly flesh versus spirit.
Exactly.
And
yeah,
that's powerful.
Yeah.
That was worth the price of admission right there. Yeah. Good stuff. Okay. Let's kind of wrap up. If you have anything that you're thinking that, hey, I need to say this about gratitude, about what I learned, about you name it. What's your final thoughts? or advice to people. There's a lot there. I asked you,
there's a lot there.
Six questions in one there.
Oh yeah. I mean, just thankful for God. And this is what's weird about saying thank you when we are where we are now. My hope is my posture would be the same, even if it wasn't this good. It certainly wouldn't have been this early on had something went terribly wrong. But very thankful that the suffering we went through, like, it has helped us grow. It's not how I wanted to start lead pastorship. I feel like now I'm kind of playing catch up. Last week was pretty hard. My first week back from paternity, and a bunch of decisions had to be made. Lots of meetings. People are dealing with some really heavy things at church. And so this is kind of the first normal week, I guess, back.
So let's do a podcast to talk all about it.
So let's do a podcast to talk all about it. But I'm very grateful because God was very consistent in the season. Some advice, and honestly, this is just a shout out to Jake, like our worship pastor. Like, my season was tough, but it was like an eighth of the length of what Jake has been navigating for the last almost year now with his health.
And there's people listening to this the same way. And
right, there's so many people in our church.
We think of some people that we pray daily for that have been battling things for, honestly, years.
My sister Taylor, some other members, I won't name their names. You know who you are, though. If you're thinking of yourself, that's you.
That's it.
I think that was also really helpful for me to kind of reframe. Like, I want to lead well in this season of hardship for that. Like, they were helping me get through, even though they weren't necessarily above and beyond encouragers or anything. They just, their story and seeing them navigate, I'm like, man, that gives me so much strength to keep going.
Sure.
So all that to say, I would say, first, I'm grateful for everybody, grateful for God. Where, if anything, this is my final piece of advice. Man, there were so many tidbits throughout. The biggest thing that got me through this season, the two biggest things, was finding where I could be consistent in, and that was worship music. Like, that consistently helped to get me through day in and day out. And that helped me be my best in the areas I could. But then the biggest thing was just, man, be where your feet are. Just physically, like, it's why Jesus says tomorrow has enough tomorrow has enough troubles of its own. I could not let myself think, what if she's here past her due date? What does that mean if she has to get surgery? What if we don't get to bring her home? Period. Like, those are all real things that could have happened. What if Marissa dies on the delivery table? Could have happened. I had to, again, go against my natural wiring and say, I'm just going to, right now, Marissa's alive. Right now, Chloe's alive. Right now, the church is healthy. Right now,
a day by day gratefulness of what is happening
just
in the current
waking
moment.
Up and being like, God, thank you. Psalm 118:24, this is the day the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. Like, this is the day. Not these are the good days the Lord has made. So, yeah.
Powerful stuff. Well, thank you for sharing your heart and letting everyone honestly be part of your journey as we've watched you navigate this, you and Marissa and the family. And it's been an honor and just cool inspiring almost to say that, hey, we all go through this no matter what. And for those of you out there who are still battling, know that we are here and we're praying for you, and you're not forgotten, and the community is here. And I would say that's the one thing is that is the most important thing, is having that kind of community, which means being plugged in. And so you do your part in that.
Yeah.
Okay. There you go. There's
Woo! I only cried once.
6. Yeah, you did really good. So
thank
you for sharing with us and being so vulnerable and personal. So thanks for tuning in, everybody. We will see you again.
Eventually.
Yeah, sometime. We don't know exactly when, but
for episode 7, season 6, episode 7.
It's going to be a good one.